I'm Katie Griffiths, and I've been a student at New York University for 1 year, and with United Students Against Sweatshops for also 1 year. And on September 11th, when I woke up, I went outside and I watched the World Trade Center fall down. The only thing I could think to myself for a good 3 hours after that was that this cannot possibly be real. And after that, I thought, no, it wasn't real before this, and this is what really happens all over the rest of the world. And that doesn't make it fair. It doesn't make it fair here, it doesn't make it fair there. And I think what I most want to let other people know who are not here, not in Lower Manhattan, and didn't watch this happen, is that I most of all don't want this to ever happen to anyone, ever, anywhere again. Not in Afghanistan and not anywhere else. And to also, I want them to know that it already does happen all the time. And often it's the American government that's complicit in other people's deaths and in bombings and destruction. And it's their governments, and it's the American government that people are mad at. It's not us. It's the American people that had to suffer for it. And George Bush last night on TV said that this was an attack on American freedom. That this was an attack on American freedom, and it was. The first step that we've taken is to limit our own freedom. It's for our government to limit our freedom by taking away our civil rights, by expanding the powers of the CIA. We don't need people to attack our freedom if we're willing to limit it ourselves. That's not peace, that's not justice. And that's what I think people in New York here want. We want justice for everybody that has been affected by this, and also for everybody else.
Hi, my name is Ashley Simpson, and I'm a student with the United Students Against Sweatshops. I live in Atlanta, Georgia, and I go to school at Georgia State University. I've been a member of USAS since we first formed in 1998. Aside from working with USAS, I also work with the Association of Flight Attendants, AFL-CIO. We represent some 50,000 flight attendants at carriers such as United, US Airways, Alaska, and also AirTran. Working with AFA, I've been working on a campaign to organize some 20,000 plus Delta flight attendants into a union. So the tragedies that hit this country last week, affected me not only with the work I do with USAS and what we fight for there, but also with my daily work with AFA, because some of the victims of the tragedy last week were the flight crews on those 4 airplanes that went down. It's been very hard for me, as it has been for much of the nation, but with me I feel like I've had no real escape. I've had to deal with it day to day at work, having flight attendants call in their horror stories, and it's been a horrible experience. They feel like they have no safety, and all of a sudden my 2 worlds have collided. My fight against corporate greed and the injustices that go on worldwide. In regards to USAS and what happened last week, I still feel the same way that I did before. I still want to fight for the same things I did before. I still think that workers are abused around the world by corporations, mainly US corporations. And I've heard from a lot of people that they can't understand why other people around the world hate Americans so much. But I've seen firsthand what we've done to people around the world. So I can't talk for everyone collectively in USAS, and I can't talk for AFA collectively as a union, a nonprofit organization. But this is the way that I do see things, and I think that a lot of people in USAS would agree. And I know a lot of my AFA fellow organizers do agree that there are things that have caused what we saw last week, and it's not all of our fault. These terrorists were horrible, evil people who had twisted beliefs, but there are things that we as Americans can do to prevent things like what we saw last week from happening, for preventing people around the world from hating our capitalist ideas and our imperialist ideas. And that's really what our government needs to be focusing on right now. We don't need to immediately wage war against all the Middle and Far East. That's one of the other problems we've been seeing, is that so many people just have such a lack of understanding of the mere geography, let alone the history of this region, that they can't understand to separate the religion, the people, the things that they've had to go through, and why those people react the way that they do. So in order for us as a people and for our government to really wipe out terrorism and the types of horrible events that we witnessed and experienced last week, we really have to get to the root of the problem and figure out what causes people to act the way that we saw they did last week, and to correct those problems. That includes helping to stamp out poverty, making sure that these people don't have some other resort other than siding with a terrorist group or person in order to survive.
My name is Ginger Gentile. I'm a student at Columbia University, and I've been involved for 3 years with United Students Against Sweatshops. And right now, as activists, we're at a place where we're trying to figure out what to do next, but also the outpouring at rallies and demonstrations at vigils among New Yorkers is very inspiring, and that people are using this event to examine how they interact with each other, but also how America interacts with the world. And we hope that something good can come out of this tragedy. In New York, this has been a very emotional time for us, but it's also been a time where, even though we're in the midst of this tragedy, people here really don't want a tragedy like this to happen anywhere else. And everyone here and everyone I've talked to wants the government to act in a responsible manner, and we want peace. And more importantly, as activists, we hope that this event, this very painful time for us, will be used to examine our culture, our economy, our government policies, and make them better, because there are a lot of people out there who don't like America. And while the attack was unjustified and horrible and tragic, and I lost people that I knew in those buildings, I think that they would want us to use this event to become a better people. And when we talk about peace, we don't want things just to go back to the way they were, because they never can go back to the way they were. But we want things to, we want a better world, and we want a world where people who make things for us can also have justice, as well as the people who are affected by this tragedy. We want them to have justice too. And we just realize now that, you know, the violence that America has perpetuated was brought home. And we realize now how horrible it is, and how horrible, tragic, and random, and how the people who are affected by this violence are innocent people. And we want that to stop. This summer I was in Indonesia with the Collegiate Apparel Research Initiative. You might have read about us on this website. And Indonesia is the world's largest Muslim country. It's also filled with some of the most peaceful, friendly people I've ever met. People who have had a lot of violence directed towards them by the US government, but still are kind to Americans and love Americans. And I've been getting tons of messages from them, including many sweatshop workers, asking if I was okay, how is New York doing, and that they're praying for America right now. And I thought it was very sad in a way, because I was, you know, they're saying that everyone over there is concerned and is praying for us, but it's like I can't tell the same, that even though they've had all this violence directed towards them, that the US government is funding their military, and that, you know, we have these horrible, brutal sweatshops in Indonesia, that most Americans aren't praying for them. And there have been reports of Cambodians praying for us, and people all over the world concerned because they know how brutal violence and how horrible and tragic it can be. And I would like to know that we are